So hi, this is the Drupal usability meeting for August 7th, 2018. And we will talk about update status report issues. Who is planning to present them?
That'd be me. Is there anything that you guys need to cover beforehand?
No, apparently that was the only topic for today.
All right, give me just 1 second. I will
from earlier.
Get a screen shut up to say 1 moment.
I'm gonna go outside.
All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Super. All right. Okay. So the general problem space that I'm trying to address here is related to how Drupal communicates to users, what security updates are available to them, and which security updates they should install. This is important right now because we are trying. So right now for Drupal 8 core, only the current minor version of Drupal receives security coverage. So for example, right now, Drupal 8.5 is the current minor branch of Drupal, and that means that according to the official policy, if there's a security advisor that comes out, we're only going to create a security release that is in that branch. So just this past week, we created Drupal 8.5.6, sorry, which is a security update, and we didn't create any old version of that for Drupal 8.4. Drupal 8.4 is the previous minor release. It no longer receives active support. But the goal is to change the policy so that the previous minor version will still receive security coverage only. So what we would have done under this circumstance, if this policy were adopted, is this past week, we would have created both Drupal 8.5.6 and a backported version 8.4.9 that included the same security advisory fix, just fixed against the 8.4 branch. We didn't actually do that. For purposes of this demo that I'm about to show you, I actually faked it and pretended Drupal 8.4.8 was the equivalent release because that was the least work, because I have to sort of fake the update status report data that's coming from Drupal.org to do a demo. So right now, if you're on, so let's pretend that Drupal 8.4.8 was a security release that includes the exact same security advisory as 8.5.6. So they're the same thing. They're both equally secure. It's just that, one includes the new features and one doesn't. So you can see here on my screen, if I go to, like, if I'm just browsing my site, if I look at, like, let's go to status reports, actually. Let's do this. So I'll see this message on my screen that there's a security update available for my version of Drupal, even though I just installed, pretend I just installed Drupal 8.4.8 as a security update. But it's still telling me that there's a security update available for my version of Drupal. And if I go to the available updates page, I see that it tells me I'm on Drupal 8.4.8, which is a security release and is marked secure on Drupal.org, but it still tells me that I have to update to Drupal 8.5.6. So there's a bug fix in the queue for this right now. Like the minimum thing that we need to do is to make it so that it stops telling people their site is insecure when their site is actually secure. And this is sort of like the hard part. Neil Drum and myself have been working on this for a while. I'm going to apply this patch locally and show you what just the first step of the fix is. So with this patch that we're working on, what the status report will do now is, so I'm on 8.4.8, it's equivalent to 8.5.6. And now, instead of saying, security update required, it just says update available because I am on an older minor version and there are a bunch of features in 8.5 that I could install that'd be better. So this is like the minimum fix that we're working on right now, just to stop Drupal from telling you that your site is insecure when it's not, basically. But in some ways, this doesn't quite go far enough because let's say that I was on Drupal 8.4.7, and you can see how I'm hacking this actually. Don't ever do this to your site, but this is part of what I have to do in order to hack the test. So let's clear the cache. Let's pretend that now I'm on Drupal 8.4.7, which is one older release. So Drupal 8.4.8 is a security release that's available to me. I still have the patch applied, but it lists like out all, and it is actually listing 8.4.8 now. That's interesting. It's just different than what was happening this morning. But so when I was looking at it this morning, I think that this might actually be because I've screwed around with the data. This 8.4.8 wasn't listed here, but it also is like this, whether or not it's there, this screen doesn't tell me like what I should do, right? So what the information that I would expect as a site owner is that, okay, the recommended version is 8.5.6. That's true. 8.5.6 has all the latest features and bug fixes. But I might want to know as a site owner that I have the choice to choose between either applying the security update of 8.4.8 right away or updating to 8.5.6, but then that could be more work because the minor version update is more work. So one of the problems that we'll want to solve, and I'm going to list out sort of like each of the problems, and then we can talk about them together. One of the problems that we'll want to solve is to inform the site owner on this page somehow that, well, if they're on 8.4.7, the fastest, safest thing to do is to just install the 8.4.8 security update and then plan to update to 8.5.6 soon. So we have, and I'll put all of these links in the Hangout chat actually, so we don't lose track of them. I should have done this before. 1 second. So the first issue I mentioned before, where just to tell you that your site is secure and not lie about it, the first issue I mentioned is not sent a chat message. It's not showing up in the chat. Are you guys getting messages in the chat from me? Sorry.
I don't see it.
I haven't seen it yet.
Was that a yes or a no?
No.
I do not see it. I see something from Tom and from Ted.
Yeah, I just tested to make sure it was coming through.
Okay, yeah, this is interesting because I don't seem to have. Let me try opening it again. 1 second. Test.
It's weird. Jess, you want to put it in Slack and I'll put it in? Or is Jess there?
Oh.
Sure, she's on her way back.
Sorry about that. My client decided that it would be an awesome time to send me through all the process of doing the 5-factor authentication that's necessary to use my Google account. No. Yay. All right. So the issue I was talking about was that one. That's the issue. Just the bare minimum of making it so that Drupal doesn't say that your secure release is insecure. The second issue that I just demonstrated to you, or just talked about to you, is this issue. So no, not that issue. This one. So Drupal should inform. No. 1 second. Still missing one. Here we go. This is the one. I have this postponed issue that's postponed on fixing the bug. So you can see here, if I'm on, this is as of the last time I was testing it yesterday.
You need to share your
You're not
screen.
sharing your screen.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. It's everyone on Google Hangout. The AI should be able to figure it out when you say, "I'm showing you this," and it should just turn it
Yeah,
on.
right?
I was showing you that.
That's why I give up all of my privacy rights, is so that it doesn't.
Okay, so yeah, the second link in there is this issue that I was just talking about. And I'm getting obviously a different result currently with the patch than what I was getting here. But so in this scenario that I was mentioning before, in the scenario I've created in the screenshot, the site was on 850 or whatever, or sorry, the site is on 845. Both 851 and 846 are the same security update that came out for, SA Core 2018-002, the big scary thing that happened back in April. And although it's lying about the release date, just pretend that's not there. But if I'm on 846, I would want to know on the status report that I have, or if I'm on 885, I would want to know that I have the option of going to 846, and that's the safest security update to apply immediately. And so one of the ways to solve this is to provide a link to two of them with something that communicates the difference to the user. I don't know exactly. Now, third issue related to this, and I think what we don't want to happen is, so what I just saw in my screenshot looked more like what I used to see when a site was multiple security releases behind. This is this third issue here, where let's say you were on an old 8 Drupal, 8.0 something, 8.1.10 it says, and then the current version of Drupal was 8.3.0 RC2, the most recent developed version. What it would do is it would list every single security update that ever was there in a giant red wall at the top of your screen, so that you have 15 different links about all the security updates that are there. And it's like, which do I choose? A bunch of backend developers trying to say that this this was intentional in order to inform the user and sort of terrify the user into updating because there's so many security releases behind. I think that it doesn't actually accomplish that goal and is more, it actually provides less direction by having too much information. Obviously, what I think you'd want the site to tell you is just what release should I install? And in this case, if you're, so I asked Emily, Diane Nova, to look at this, and she sort of confirmed. She said she sort of seconded my feeling that having a huge red wall listing every single release since the beginning of time, including releases that are not like on this in this screenshot, as of Drupal, as of Drupal 8.1.0, installing or 1.10, installing Drupal 8.1.3 certainly wouldn't have even been appropriate, and installing 8.2.3 wouldn't have been appropriate because 8.2.3 is also insecure, right? 8.2.7 is the only release on this screen that's secure. So it does not make sense to list all of these things on the page.
Jess, I have a question.
Yep.
So if, say you don't want, I definitely see why you don't want all of those shown, but let's say you're 5 behind and the second one that you're behind on has something in the release of the security one to say, if you haven't applied this patch, you may have been compromised in X or Y way. Please check to see if you have been. If they only see that there's one security release that they should be applying, will they be missing out on the fact that they missed 4, even though it's all included, because there might be steps they should take in the release notes?
Yes, so this has also come up in the discussion of the issue. So there's, for example, one of the proposals was to list the security releases all in a row, like where's an example? Somewhere in the issue, someone suggested releasing previous security releases X, Y, Z, and so forth. One thing that I suggested was just, or having a link to see the past security releases for the project, so that, because it's like, if someone needs to read the security advisories, they should read the security advisories. They shouldn't have to do that by clicking on 20 different core releases, clicking through the 20 core releases to the 20 security advisories associated with those core releases, and then reading them. We should just give them a list of the security advisories that they're behind, and like they can look through them and see which ones they're behind. So that was my proposal, is just to have, well, obviously the link doesn't work, but just have a link of some sort to Drupal security, so that the site owner knows, you have security updates to apply. Go ahead and read the security advisories page to learn about what the advisories are, or if you're not, or just update your site, because you should probably do that anyway.
Jess, do you mind if I ask a question?
Yes. Yeah, please do.
Essentially looking at this, we're treating all of the security updates as if they have a particular meaning that is inherent in a simple upgrade path. But there are intermediate feature releases that occur that you can't just easily skip sometimes. And as a site builder maintainer, I've repeatedly run into problems where if I skipped a couple of intermediary releases, if I didn't identify the ones that had steps that I had to perform, I could introduce a lot of problems to my site. So it's most common that I've run into it when updating Lightning. But I could foresee that being a problem as we continue to add features to core and we migrate contrib modules into new namespaces. So there's things that you have to do that wouldn't appear in a simple stream of security updates. And it's a problem that's in both spaces.
Yep.
Is that something you've seen?
Yep. So that is one of the problems we're trying to solve, which, so that gives me I apologize for the noises in the background. I have to work at a cafe because I'm ferrying my dad between appointments. So that brings me, so that's one of the things that we would be trying to solve with this issue. I'm just making sure I put it in the sidebar already. Yes. For core, I think the scenario you just described is I'm on 8.4.5. The Drupal 8.5x update could be, it included, 8.5 didn't really include anything there, but say that 8.5 included something where, like the workspaces module moving into core, and I wanted to move to that. Or let's say that it was a release that included a major version update for a dependency, like where we had a jQuery update in 8.4. Then I would want to test that upgrade from 8.4 to 8.5 very carefully, right? But if I'm on 8.4.5 and the security release comes out, I don't have time to do all of those things before I install the security update. So offering 8.4.6 as a security update and presenting that to the user as an option is one of the problems we're trying to solve here. Now note that for releases other than security releases, this update report does not repeat every single one of them that's ever existed. It only tells you what the latest one that's recommended is, and then the latest one that's not recommended if there's like a beta or something. Whereas for security releases only, it lists all of them, but it doesn't give you any information about, which one of these things is not like the other. What do I actually recommend? Or at least that was the old behavior. So that's one of the things that I think we'd like to just try to solve here is how to, present to the user the information that, there are these two security updates that are available to you. And pick one of them based on your needs. First step, get your site secure, get on 8.4.6. Next step, you're going to have to update to 8.5 eventually. Start planning and testing. This might take a little more work, which is a nice segue to another issue that's related to this. That's sort of like probably the last step for it. Here we go. I just finally got around to filing this one. But it worked. Nope. So the goal for this last issue, it's really interesting to try to use expose with the screen share, and stuff keeps going strange. Here we go. Okay, so for this issue, something else that Drupal doesn't currently do is Drupal doesn't currently tell you whether or not the version of core you're on receives security coverage. For Drupal 7x and below, in theory, not necessarily in practice, but in theory, one release was like another. So they were always in a continuous series. If you're on 7.14, you can update to 7.56, and that's the release you're supposed to be on. They're all in a continuous series. And there's, theoretically, no one release is more important to them from another. But with the semantic versioning cycle, obviously, like minor releases do, have new features in core, sometimes have bigger changes that we wouldn't put in a bug fix release. And so that is important information for the user to have. So the goal of this issue is beyond just that update status report, how to find a way to communicate to the user. First of all, like if you've got Drupal 8.5.6 installed right now, great. Thumbs up, your site currently receives, active support. It gets bug fixes and security fixes and everything. But then once we adopt this policy for extended security coverage, let's say, if I were on 8.4, whatever, pretend security backport right now, or let's say, better example, let's say in October, Drupal 8.6.2 comes out, and so that includes both the new features that'll be in Drupal 8.6.0, stuff like workspaces and so forth, and a security advisory that we release in October. So under the new policy, with the extended 6-month security coverage, we would create both 8.6.2 and 8.5.7, where 8.5.7 would include the same security advisory, but none of the new features or disruptive changes. And so at that point, for that user, we take care of the last problem. We give them the option to update to 8.5.7. But in order to really actually get the advantage of that 6-month security coverage for most of the audience, the site owner needs to know that it's their version, this security fix that they got, that they won't continue getting those backported security fixes forever, right? There's a fixed date, a date that's already set in the future, by which time they'll need to have updated to at least 8.6, if not 8.7. And so having some way, like a message it could be something like just like their normal status report, not the update status, but like where they have. Let me show you the page that I'm talking about, just for clarity's sake. My logo. Here we go. So on the status report, we have this nice. Nicely redesigned a few releases ago thing that has errors, warnings, and checked. So let's say that, and this is, let me put it on, to make the version constant, right? 5.6, so you see what it would look like on the actively supported release. There we go. By the way, the toolbar has been broken for a couple of releases. I don't know if anyone's noticed this. Wasn't able to find a bug report for it. Got sidetracked. So apparently it still thinks that I'm not on 6. There we go. Okay. So right now, my site is on pretend 8.5.6. What I might expect, this is one example of how this could happen. So one thing that might happen if, when I'm on 8.6, is maybe under like these checked things, maybe under the details, it would have something there about, Drupal minor version. Your minor version has active support, and a link to the handbook page that explains what that means. And then let's say I were on the old minor, then maybe under the warning, it would say something like, one of these messages is like, your Drupal site receives, your Drupal site receives security coverage, but you should plan to update bot to the next release by date or something to continue receiving security coverage. And I'm not sure, about the level of warning versus error versus info message or not, but then, presumably if you're on like 8.3, then you would see a stronger message. Your minor version of Drupal doesn't receive security coverage, update as soon as possible to make sure that you get security updates or something like that. And not a designer, so I don't know what the exact specific solution would be. But I imagine that somewhere on the status report would be the place to expose this information to the user so that they have links, at a minimum, have links to the documentation on Drupal.org that helps them make the decision. And so they know that, since most site owners, I think about like 30 to 40% of all site owners on the internet solely skip from security release to security release to security release, they're not necessarily going to be able to take advantage of this extended security coverage we're trying to give them, because Drupal doesn't tell them about it anywhere. So unless you're someone who follows like Drupal communication channels, reads stuff on Drupal.org front page and so forth, you won't necessarily know that these releases are coming out and that your minor version, you've got like this difficult update or two ahead of you until you can get security updates once this comes around. Because in some ways it kind of works backward. Like if we right now, so just this past release, we actually stopped, like we didn't create a test backport security version for 8.4. And so what's happened to those site owners is now they're actually in a worse situation. Their site is, we gave them security releases for a while, but now their site is like an entire year out of date from the latest features instead of only 6 months out of date. And so the next time they see a security update, they have to actually, they might have to jump over 2 big minor updates instead of 1. So we want to give the site owner information sooner to help them make a decision about, planning their updates. And that is all 4 of the issues that I had today. You can see kind of how they're all related. And like each one is sort of like a successive step on top of the previous one. I do need to mention one other issue that this might get confused with, and that has also some similar design considerations, especially regarding what I was just talking about which minor version has security coverage. So there's this issue open for contrib, where contributed projects can either opt in or out of security team coverage. And this is a whole issue trying to discuss how to communicate to people in the status report either that their project is covered, and it has examples like putting a little shield next to it and stuff like that. There's a lot of previous developers designing things, trying to decide how to make the Drupal status report communicate to people that either their site is not covered by a security advisory or that it is with little shields and stuff like that. And so this isn't the same issue because it's about it's mostly about contrib projects, but a lot of the same design questions come into play, and at least eventually, so I think that it's definitely worth reading the prior art here in terms of what we try to do for the design, and also eventually, it doesn't initially have to look exactly the same way, but I think that ideally, once we fix it the best way possible, that both. We would use the same signals so that there's less different things that the user has to understand. You can see Roy, commented on this issue, had some suggestions a while ago. So this issue, I think, is like worthwhile background reading in terms of, making a design decision on stuff. Cool. All right. That's all of the issues I had. I can answer any questions or whatever about it.
Hi, it's Jake. My feedback, so I'm going to just send some questions through the chat because it's like as you were talking, and these are questions you were asking and answering, and when I look at the user interface, that's how I see it. It's like there's a question and someone's looking for an answer. So we answer what version of Drupal is installed, and the thing that personally I've gotten hit by is how long is that version supported? Oh.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you were on mute, and I'm looking at your screen. I got confused for a second. So I've gotten burned personally by how long is this version supported, because I think I was on 8.4 and we dragged our feet on 8.5 and didn't realize that there wasn't going to be a security update. And telling people that, and I think Ubuntu does that really well in their, when you go to their about page, it's like, you're on this version, this has long-term support for X number of years. And if you're not on that LTS, it says you only have support for blank. and it might even go as far as once you're out of that range, it tells you, you're 3 months out of date. And then the other stuff, I mean, I just like when we're doing the UX here, it's like I feel like you just got to be like, is there a security update? You tell them, what is the security update? I don't know. We have a link to the release notes. The challenge here is what's the easiest way to apply a security update? And I feel like that's tied to, if we tell them they're on 8.4.6 and it's still supported, we can then say you can quickly apply the security patch for your current release, or jump to the next release. And then the only other one for the whole community is just telling people how to get notifications on security releases, because I don't think a lot of people know that there's mailing lists for that. And they don't always have up the update module or go on Drupal.org. And for site owners, I feel like it's the easiest way for them to at least have some. I know my site owner does not code or ever apply, but he sure as hell likes to get the email notification.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that too, actually, in the context of solving this, is that it's like currently the way that you find out about how Drupal handles security, if you're a site owner, is you see that there's a security update on the status report. You go to the release notes of that security update and read the release notes of that security update on Drupal.org. Then inside those release notes, by convention, there's a link to the individual security advisory. And so then you go and read the individual security advisory. And maybe when you're reading that individual security advisory, you notice that there's other tabs on the page that tell you about more security advisories. And then that has the sidebar box about it. So we could certainly make a lot shorter by just giving the user the information. Sorry, 1 second, my phone's ringing. This could be my father. I'll be right back.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll add, I just throw it out there, like, not everyone has the update module turned on. So it's almost like just even having text that just says there's a security like stay up to date on releases and security advisories, and 2 links that go to those 2 places is a more direct way of dealing with this. I don't know if
so that, I mean, if I have the update module on for this example. I know that, like right now, if the update module is turned off, it gives you a warning, which is something that some people have actually complained about, because they're, actually it's not a best practice to have it installed in production. Okay, now this is my father. Sorry.
I wonder if, I mean, since it's not a best practice to have it on the production, you don't necessarily want to warn people that they have it off. But I wonder if there was an information page that showed up that had links to security related stuff, like this is, our security policy. This is how, this is where we define what support, when we support stuff, when you didn't have the module on, just so you knew that, because you may not have any idea at all about that there is a security policy or there is security releases if you don't have the update module on. So you might not know why. You might have turned it off when you installed Drupal and never really thought about it. And if there's not any information at all when you don't have it on, it's really hard to find out that there are security updates.
Yeah, and we're dealing with the fact that a lot of sites are delivered with the update module turned off to the owner.
So I think solving that problem is kind of out of scope for what we're solving here, but it actually, I do think that it's worth its own issue to, well, if, first of all, inform the user what the consequences of turning the update module are off, and maybe it's just a matter of changing that warning to communicate to people, hey, update module's not turned on. If you're doing this on purpose, be sure to follow this information and adding something to that. That could be like a super easy fix, like 1 sentence and link patch to existing stuff that we could backport, and to help just give users a little more information when they do have the update module off. But I would say that the scope of what we're trying to solve for all of these is what happens when the update module is on.
One thing that I find a bit confusing about the way our security notifications work is that it's unless you read through all of the intermediary steps. So I'm thinking right now about 8.4. I have a site, and I've seen this a lot in support tickets, where you'll be stuck on 8.3 or 8.4, and without running through a bunch of specific intermediary upgrades, you actually can't ever get to 8.5 or 8.6. And so I don't know if there's a way that we could make it very visible in the interface when there's going to be intermediary steps that you need to be aware of, because we treat each upgrade in our documentation as if you've done everything leading up to that next upgrade.
So unfortunately, I'm not like, from core side, I don't think that we're aware of what those updates are going to be. So I'm not sure how we would surface that information, because we don't know. In a lot of cases, that probably depends on the contributed modules you have installed, and so forth.
The biggest issues where I've seen it is whenever you have something that we're working on that we have in an experimental state in core. The big one was workbench moderation. So you might have a site that had to have workbench moderation functionality, and simultaneously we've introduced a experimental module that we're telling people not to use, and both things exist in parallel. And things got really ugly, and this may never happen again. But I definitely have seen a large number of instances with customers where they get stuck on out-of-date, unpatchable, or unupgradable websites because of the conflict between what we're migrating in and how we handle that process. And I'm wondering if there's a way of just notification or organizing documentation for security updates that make it clear this isn't going to be plug and play. Because the implication when I look at these things is that all I have to do is go to the latest security update, 8.5.6, and I can wave a magic wand and everything will work. But in practice, I've seen that often isn't the case.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's exactly one of the things that like this extended security coverage we want to help address is, so first of all, the situation with content moderation and workbench moderation. Well, so some of the problems that people have had with experimental modules moving into core in general will never happen again, because we realized stuff we were doing to experimental modules, despite all of our warnings, was still too disruptive to people. So we tightened up our rules a lot about, you know, what the requirements are before an experimental module is actually available to site owners to turn on. Like, they can't be alpha anymore; they only can be beta to be in core. But there, you know, other parts of that we've tried to address. Like, for example, for media, when we were moving media into core, we knew that the media module, you know, we knew that like exactly the situation you just described was going to be problematic for people, and so the media team put a real focus on making sure that the API was stable and that they had all of the tools to upgrade their contrib ecosystem to the core media module in place before they let that become available as a normal core module, so that you know, site owners continued to support the contrib version of media entity right up until the point that core was ready to switch over and all the upgrade paths were done, and they didn't ever allow that sort of like intermediate phase. So we are doing things to make that less likely, but there still will be, of course, times when site owners do need to make, with a minor release, that there'll be, you know, new feature moves into core if they want to, you know, run an upgrade to switch from something to new core feature. Those things will continue to come up. So what I think what I'm hear you pointing out is that at least from core side, this means the minor releases. From core side, it would be good to not only communicate to site owners that there's a security update available for their minor release, but also somehow about what a minor release means, and whether that's just a link to the to the release cycle overview or what, I'm not sure. But so could you, if you saw on your status report, you know, security update required, you can update to this now, update for the next minor. So you're on 8.4.5, it says 8.4.6, and then it says for the latest, you know, 8.5, you know, the latest minor release is this minor release, and had a link to that. Does that address the need, or do we need some way of, you know, telling the user also, by the way, read the 8.5.0 release notes or read information about 8.5 that came out 6 months ago that you missed or something.
I think that would probably work. I'm just thinking that it would be a nice visual communicator so let's say I was on 8.4.0 and I wanted to upgrade to 8.4.8. If we had a way of indicating there are going to be additional steps necessary to account for changes that happened at 8.4.4 and 8.4.6.
Well, so for core, core, if there are additional steps that are necessary within a minor release, then we fucked up.
Got it. Okay.
But the scenario would be like if you're on 8.3.9 and you want to update to 8.4.4, that's the point at which you might expect, as a core developer, you might expect a little more disruption, because we deliberately make it so that if there's a change that we're kind of not sure about, or if we think that it requires, it'll require some contrib module to make changes, or it'll, requires like an upgrade path or something. We try to put all those changes together in the minor releases so that at least they're only happening every 6 months. So that's why I was saying that for contrib, obviously, like, we can't communicate to people when contrib's going to break, because we don't know. And we can't communicate to people that that there was a screw up, because hopefully we will have undone the screw up by their next patch release in that situation. So those two I don't know that we can solve. But in terms of, it's like the thing where, well, if you're on 8.3.9 and you're going to go to 8.4.4, do you need to read the release notes for every single release between now and then? And then how do we communicate to the user that they should do that? So like, I can give you an example of what the, what we actually put in the minor release notes, which are the ones that are for core's purposes. And again, we can't really help with contrib. So I'm going to show you the releases for, isn't it funny that I have the URLs for all of the release nodes memorized for core? It's very funny. So what I'm just putting in the sidebar now is the release for Drupal 8.5.0, the release notes. So this document includes all of the information that we think it doesn't talk about new feature or anything. It includes all of the things that we think might trip site owners up when they're trying to upgrade. So it includes things like, heads up, we're dropping support for PHP 5 in a year. Heads up, if you're on a release older than 8.4, we had some BC breaks for you in Symfony and jQuery. If you have a module that deals with pending revisions, this stuff has changed. Read this to make sure that your site is okay with that. So this is where Drupal puts the like most important information where we think something bad might happen to site owners, or they need to take some extra step, is always going to be wherever possible in the minor release notes.
And that definitely all makes sense. And I realize that conceptually the problem I'm struggling with is I'm on a distribution. Distributions are essentially core plus contrib, and we can't cover for contrib in core. It's just not possible. So that's where the problem is being introduced, is in there. Because even though it looks like core, it isn't core, and that makes a conceptual problem.
Yeah, I mean, so they get like the combination of of all of core's problems and all of the relevant contrib problems all at the same time. So yeah, I would say that I mean, I guess that the distribution has the same problem there, but I feel like sort of contingent on the distribution to help with that somehow.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think that the only thing that I'd point out after having heard everything is that making those pages a whole bunch of bullet points may not make the point as consistently as if within the UI for the status page, if PHP is going to be invalidated, like PHP 5.6 is invalidated in a year, maybe there's a warning that goes out and says that in the interface.
There is a warning that says that in the interface.
Angie
and Angie will remember vividly me going overboard to commit that to every branch of Drupal ever. Yes. If you're on PHP 5.5 and you install Drupal 5 or 8.5 or higher, there will be an angry message telling you exactly that.
Away. Perfect. All right, then I'm going to shut up now. Thank you very, very much, Jess.
So what do you need from our team? Are you looking for design help? Are you looking for us to feedback on some of those issues? Like how can we help with this?
Yeah, so definitely giving, especially those, so that there's two things in general that we want to accomplish, right? For one, we want to do the very minimal changes necessary in order to just communicate to the user that they have what extended security coverage is, right? Just the teeniest tiny changes that we can make in those few issues, and then then there's sort of like the end goal of having sort of like something that's a consistent holistic way of reporting information to the user about their versions installed and so forth, that gives them all of the information that they need to upgrade, right? So I can use help, we can use help with both those things. If people especially on one of the issues that are not, I think, like help with like proposed designs, and especially like vetoing designs that are going to represent significant usability regressions. Just like simple, quick little tiny proposals about how some of these things for those 4 issues or whatever should look. That would be really helpful.
Okay, great. Any other feedback from anyone? All right, thanks so much, Jess, for showing all that and getting all into the details. It's a lot more there than I was originally thinking. So yeah, lots to chew on, I think.
Yeah, thanks, Jess. It's great.
Yeah, so if anyone, like, just in those first links, if you have the availability to sort of like just read through them or comment on them with a proposal or suggestion that you have, I'm also going to share the recording from the meeting with Emily, who's already like gave feedback on one of the issues I showed, just to sort of like help move stuff along on them as well. But yeah, and maybe we'll see where we're at in a week or two, and maybe I can come check back in if I have hopefully some intermediate results to report.
Great. Okay, everybody. Thanks for coming, and we'll give you 6 minutes of your life back.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.